What's up, Junkie Nation? Gorgeous George and Ghost cannot stop delivering. We come through again. We got Chatri Sityodtong. He is the founder and CEO of One Championship. And don't forget, like we've been telling you all week, One Championship Empower is tomorrow for us in North America on Friday with a 7:30 Eastern start time. United States audience, make sure you go to the Bleacher Report app and Bleacher Report YouTube. And of course, you can go to ONE FC anywhere you consume the show around the world to see exactly what part in your part of the world where you can consume the show. The One super app I know available to many countries. Welcome, Chatri. How you doing?
Thank you, George. Thank you for having me.
One Empower, you are the big feature is the title fight between Nicolini, who's challenging Zhang. And you also have the Atomweight Grand Prix. As it started to come together, was the focus to make it an all-female card? Or as it started to come together, did you guys realize, wait a minute, we should do this?
No, we planned for an all-female card. When we started looking at our data, we saw that how our female stars were driving a lot of, metrics, a lot of TV ratings and social media and digital metrics. And with that, look, let's do something special that no major global organization has ever done before, which is an all-female card. But we wanted to make it special. We wanted to have the best of the best athletes. And so we said, look, if we're going to do a World Grand Prix, it has to represent the very best 8 atomweights from all over the world, 4 corners of the globe. And we scoured the globe and signed a couple and already had the roster. And then in terms of the main event, it was about same thing. Michelle Nicolini is an 13-time world champion in jiu-jitsu. She wants to be the first woman to ever become both an ADCC world champion as well as a MMA world champion. But she has a tough task. She's going to have to try to dethrone Jingnan, who is tied with Angela Lee in terms of most title defenses in one. And, she has massive KO power. So I think the fans are in for a real treat. These women are intelligent, strong, fast, athletic, highly, highly technical. I mean, genuinely would beat up most people, male or female, in any gym they go to. And so I think the fans are in for a real treat here.
Definitely.
And one more fight is we have the greatest pound-for-pound striker in Anissa Meksen, who's 100 victories and 5 losses in kickboxing and Muay Thai. She's going to be making her debut in kickboxing in one. So that's, Anissa Meksen is arguably, you can ask any expert in striking, and she's the greatest pound for pound right now, female kickboxer, striker in the world. So she makes
you have assembled quite a cast there for the Atomweight Grand Prix. We've seen Elise Anderson train many times over at the Extreme Couture Gym. We're familiar with the game. Savage is a perfect nickname for her. But I'll tell you, one that stood out in looking at the whole Grand Prix to me is Denise. I mentioned her earlier pre-interview. Zembonga. I hope I got that name right. And she has a chip on her shoulder. She almost feels like, I could possibly already be fighting Miss Lee for the world title, but I'm going to go through the motions and I'm going to leave no doubt. It seems like there's a big spotlight on her matchup against the South Korean.
Definitely. I mean, Ham is a legend in mixed martial arts. She, has, I think, close to over 30 fights. And Denise is 8-0. And so it's going to be a really, I believe it's going to be the fight of the night, barn burner. Both ladies are saying they're going to end the fight by KO. The thing about Seo Hee Ham is that she has never lost at atomweight. She's always had to fight because there was never a natural weight class for her. So she always fought a weight class or 2 or even 3 above. And if you look at her losses, I think she has a handful of losses. They were against women who were much bigger, 10 pounds heavier, 5 inches taller. So this is her natural weight, and I believe she's I'm blanking on record. I think 22-7 or something like that, 22-5, something around there. Maybe you guys have the stats, but she's definitely a legendary atomweight, highly experienced. And Denise is a young up and comer rising star. She is the number one contender for Angela Lee's belt. She's a ferocious striker. She comes out guns a-blazing. I mean, I don't know if you've seen footage of her fights, but literally when the bell goes off, she runs across the cage and applies insane amount of almost reckless pressure. She wants to trade and she wants to, throw leather, and it's this real confidence that, is very scary when oftentimes, even if you have a highly technical fighter, but if their confidence is not on point on that night, they could be in for a long night against someone who might be less skilled or less experienced, but has sky high confidence. And so that's what we see here, is that Denise has sky high confidence. And I agree with you. She feels a little bit upset that Angela got pregnant and had a baby. And so they've had their banter back and forth. She has told Angela publicly that Angela should have relinquished her title. It was right to do. Angela said, no, basically F you. And so they've had a bit of bickering back and forth. But Denise is definitely one of the favorites to win this whole thing.
Yeah, and you were right. Seo Hee-ham does have over 30 fights. She's right at 31 right now with a 23-8 record. Cannot wait for that fight. That's your co-main event, right below the title fight of Michelle Nicolini against Zhang Jingnan. At least that's how Chevello says it, so I hope I got that right. But I've seen her fight before. That champion she's something else. She's a monster. And I wanted to ask you here regarding Empower, because there's a few other things we want to chat about, but this big card you have on the horizon, people need to know about it. Have you, as a promotion, found a sweet spot in terms of, is there a certain weight class that's your featured weight class, or maybe your favorite weight class? Like back in the day, like the UFC, back in Couture, Tito, and Chuck days, they said that was the marquee division, 205. Bellator just had 16 deep in their Grand Prix, which tells me that's where they felt the deepest. How about one championship? Do you have that type of a business model where you focus on a division or certain stars, or maybe even certain countries? And what would those be?
Well, as a lifelong martial artist, I can tell you that the two best rosters in the world are UFC and ONE, bar none. I would say that UFC has the edge in the heavier weight classes, and I'd say ONE has the edge in the lighter weight classes. And when you look at a lot of the UFC stars who came over to ONE, like an Eddie Alvarez or Sage Northcutt or Yushin Okami or even DJ, they've all gotten knocked out. And so, I would argue that ONE has the better lighter divisions, and heavyweight and light heavyweight, I'd say UFC, has the edge. But this is something that I've always wanted to do, George. Fans ask me out here in Asia, probably the most common question I get asked is, would you ever do a mega global event, ONE versus UFC, champion versus champion? And, I'm all for it. So it's something that, obviously out here in Asia, the lighter weight classes are more populous. The talent pool here is endless in Asia. I mean, martial arts, is Asia's greatest cultural treasure. It's been here, Asia's the birthplace of martial arts for the last 5,000 years. So there's tons and tons and tons of talent. That being said, our roster is truly global. I would say it's about 50 or a little over 50% from Asia, and the rest a little under 50 from the rest of the world. And my mantra is this: it's very simple. I want the very, very best martial artists, irrespective of weight class, in the world. And so we have scouts, that literally scout all over the world, and we look for the very, very best athletes from all different countries. So we have world champions from Brazil, from UK, from Germany, we from Netherlands. We have Chinese, Japanese, you name it. It's literally all corners of the globe. We have even like folks like Gary Tonin and Gordon Ryan from the US. Obviously superstars, world champions in submission grappling, who and Gary's going to be fighting for the world title, for the featherweight division against Tanlay in the future. So I can't say there's one favorite one that we favor. I would just say that our lightweight and below, super stacked, male or female, and that's for mixed martial arts. But if you look at our striking, because I don't know if you guys know, we at ONE we do not just mixed martial arts. We're the home of martial arts. We do a plethora of martial arts. So we've had a WBC boxing world title fight on our platform before. We have submission grappling fights. We've had, Muay Thai, kickboxing. We've had Sanda, Lutway fights. And the idea is, UFC is very deep vertically in terms of MMA. We have MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, boxing, wrestling, grappling, etc., all that stuff. So, when you look at our other martial arts, there is no ifs, ands, or buts. We have the best roster in those categories of martial arts spectrum.
Man, we love hearing those types of things because that's what makes the fans excited. We want to know who the best is, not just in North America, but in the world. But the UFC's been a little closed-minded to those types of things. So I wanted to ask you, would that invitation be open to, say, Bellator, PFL, the other organizations here? Is the invitation open to them as well?
Well, you see, if you look, Nielsen came out, I don't know if you saw the industry report. Nielsen came out with the industry report a couple months ago, naming the biggest sports properties in the world. And if you look at, it's only UFC and one in the top 10 in the world. So it was, the likes of NBA or NFL F1, EPL, Champions League, et cetera, in the top 10. And the only two combat sports promotions that were there were UFC and one, and we're neck and neck in terms of viewership numbers. And I think we were number 3 in the world in viewership numbers. I think UFC was number 5 or number 6. But then on digital and social, UFC was number 4 or 3, and we were number 4 or 5. But the other players are much smaller in terms of viewership metrics. You can go to our social media pages and see the only comparable sizes are UFC and one. So that's from a global perspective, right? Because when you do a cross promotion, it has to make sense not only from a talent perspective, but also from a global relevance. We would bring all of Asia, right, as Asia's largest promotion. If you think about UFC being the largest in the Western Hemisphere, we're the largest in the Eastern Hemisphere. So the world of combat sports is really a global duopoly. I'd say UFC has a 80-90% share, in the Western Hemisphere in terms of viewership and fandom. We have about a 90% market share out here in terms of viewership and engagement numbers and fandom. So you imagine if you had UFC versus one, that literally would bring the whole world to watch, right? I don't think the other organizations are at that scale. They're just not. I think the Nielsen report really, and it's on the Nielsen website, right? You can just download the report.
Well, like I said, we love to hear these type of things. So if we left it to you, we put it in your hands, what would be your dream matchup? You said you want to focus maybe on the lighter weight classes. Is there a matchup in mind that you love?
I would do it fair and square. Like we would just do champion versus champion, one versus UFC, heavyweight all the way down, male and female. It'd be epic. You can imagine a New Year's Eve event and the whole world would watch. It would just be epic. And I'm sure we'd win some and we'd lose some. But I think it'd be very fascinating for fans. And again, I'm highly, highly confident, especially lightweight and below, that we would dominate. And I'm sure, Dana would be highly confident that his heavyweights and light heavyweights would dominate, right? But I don't think, it's a walk in the park by any means. I think there are going to be some incredible fights, some battles, and some incredible finishes. But yeah, that would be my dream. I've been doing martial arts for 35 plus years. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for about 10 years and Muay Thai for about 35 years. And, and I love MMA. And obviously I wouldn't have started one if I didn't. So that would be kind of a dream for me.
Well, we've always known you to be a very inspirational guy. And I want to get back to this Grand Prix. Have you thought about that last message that you're going to send these ladies when you speak to them? Is it going to be any different than what you normally do? Is there a different gear going to come out of you for this one? Because we're all excited about this. It's kind of history in the making, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. Tomorrow, Singapore time. So right now it's almost 1 a.m. here in Singapore. Tomorrow at 4:30, I'm scheduled to give my pre-fight speech that I always give our athletes. And I don't really plan these things. I just walk in and say whatever's on my mind. But for this one, I have thought about it. I've thought about the millions of women and little girls all over the world who are going to be inspired by the stories and achievements of these incredible female athletes in one, the best martial artists who have overcome incredible adversity, tragedy, poverty, and adversity. Just incredible stories. And for every, man out there, if you adore your mom, this card, One Empower, is a celebration of women. And I don't know. I'm a very philosophical guy. I've always looked at the deeper meaning of what one does. And yes, we are a fight promotion, and yes, we have incredible fights and the world's best martial artists. But when I think about our platform, when I think about the fact that millions of people watch our events, I think about the impact we make on the world, and I really think about do we want to inspire little kids to treat each other better? We're teaching children how to treat their parents and how and grandparents, and through our role models, through our heroes, through our superstars, and their stories. And so for me, yes, I'm a fight fan, and yes, I'm a lifelong martial artist, but I think deeply about what am I doing as a leader of one of the world's largest sports properties, and what are my team not doing in terms of our impact on the next generation, on society, on future, on culture, on what's right and wrong. And I think very deeply about these kind of things. And so for me, this is an epic, historic moment that we can literally show the entire world what women can do.
Well, if that pre-fight speech is as deep as some of your Facebook posts, because I'm a follower, I think the ladies are going to be very, very inspired. You're very, very deep. You're a critical thinker, and you're an open book. You say some really, really cool things that kind of motivate me. I almost wish you did them daily, but no, seriously, you tell your life story, and what it seems like to me is that you see everyone as an equal, despite your success, despite the fact that you are the head honcho of the sports league there. You see everyone as equal, and you treat everybody like they have an opportunity to grow as long as they work hard. So that stuff's very, very cool. You guys are beasts on Facebook, 30 million followers recently. Amazing stuff you guys are doing there on social media. And I did see the Nielsen report, and there was some very, very interesting tidbits there. We know soccer obviously is a monster, and basketball comes strong. But I noticed that the next 6 sports were all within 130,000. The next 6 sports were within 130,000 of each other. Easily, you could see MMA possibly inching into the top 3. That's got to excite you, knowing that there is that kind of reach for the sport that continues to grow.
I'm super grateful to the UFC and to Dana and his crew out there. I think, like I said, what's happened. I think that American fans don't realize this, because the American media only covers UFC, but the truth is there's a global duopoly now. There is a king of the Western Hemisphere, a king of the Eastern Hemisphere, and we're equal in size in terms of viewership numbers and engagement numbers as per the Nielsen industry report. And I think American fans don't realize that. And you're right. I mean, the way UFC is growing, and it's growing like gangbusters in the West, and we're growing like gangbusters in the East. I think the sky's the limit. I mean, I'll give you one stat. Last year, we crossed 7.7 billion organic video views online. This year, we're already annualizing, trending on a monthly basis at 30 billion organic video views online. And just several years ago, because I started our Facebook page, I was the social media manager. Just several years ago, I think 6 years ago, we were at 156,000 organic video views online. So we went in a space of six and a half years, went from 156,000 to 7.7 billion. And then this year, after we did 7.7 billion last year, I was like, what are we going to do to top it? And in our first quarter, we were already annualizing 18 billion. And then I just, we got the stats. I get the stats every week. And we got the stats from last month, and we crossed 30 billion annualized run rate, and just mind-boggling stuff. But, what's crazy is that I still think it's the beginning of the story. It's day one for us, because there are 4.5 billion people here in Asia. Obviously, 7.9 billion people in Asia, 7.9 billion people in the world. And here's the thing, right? If you look at the mobile device, you can't see the tennis ball, the golf ball, the soccer ball, the basketball, the baseball. You're not going to sit there for a 90-minute, soccer game. You're not going to sit there, for an 18-hole tournament for golf. You're not going to sit there for a 9-inning baseball game. But you can watch, 3 rounds of 5 minutes apiece, or a 5-minute knockout, 70% of one's fights end by KO or submission, versus, let's say, 40% for UFC and Bellator in terms of finish rates. So 70% of the time you're on your mobile device, and of course you can see kicks and punches and all this flying stuff. And we got lucky. That's the truth. We got lucky because you can see combat sports very clearly on mobile device. And the first window of media consumption for millennials and Gen Z fans is this. Every morning they wake up to this, and every night they go to bed with it on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it is. And the other sports just are not built for mobile. You can't see the golf ball. You can't even see the hockey puck.
Yeah, you're right.
There's some real, so I think the global sports industry is at a real inflection point. So I think, George, to your point, can we see in the next few years combat sports becoming top 3 in the world, given UFC and one's dominance? I think yes. A global duopoly is a very strong place for both properties being, and the world is huge. And it's really exciting times because our growth rates week in, week out just blow my mind. And I'm sure UFC has the same thing internally when they're looking at the growth numbers.
When it came to digital footprint and the number of followers increased this past March when Nielsen released that report, you guys had the biggest jump of all the sports. And I wanted to ask you, did that have something to do with the fact that 1 month later you guys were going to have that big run on TNT? So I'm sure there was a lot of promotion, a lot of hype. Did those coincide with you guys making a splash in North America with those big shows?
No, I mean, coincided. I mean, our April TNT shows were obviously planned well in advance, six months beforehand. I think the Nielsen industry report was a global report from all over, monitoring all the statistics from all over the world. But obviously, I was surprised by the numbers, and I was surprised by our ranking for sure. I knew we were doing well, but I didn't know that we were in the top 10. I genuinely didn't. I knew our growth rates were spectacular. I knew our TV viewership numbers were growing, and that it's mind-boggling because, again, if you look at the top 10 players, right, top 10 largest sports properties, other than UFC and ONE, all the other guys are 70 years old to 100 years old, like EPL or America or NFL or NBA. I mean, the new kids in the block, UFC being about 30 years old and ONE being about 10 years old. We're the new kids on the block, and yet we're in the top 10, both of us. And so that was a big surprise.
Will we see another run on TNT anytime soon? Will that be like a yearly thing? How will you plan that out? Because I think you guys made a big splash in April.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the Nielsen ratings, we were the number 2 combat sports property in terms of average viewership numbers. I think we were like 2 or 3x above Bellator and PFL, but still significantly below the UFC for the month of April. What I can say to you is we're in the middle of a U.S. media rights roadshow. I'm talking to all the major broadcasters in the States right now with CAA. CAA is our agent, is our agency. And the last couple of weeks, I've had meetings, at the highest levels with all the major digital and network broadcasters. So, short of saying when we're coming to the States, I can tell you definitively 100% we're coming to the States. And it's going to be on a regular schedule. It's going to be, events on ground. It's going to be primetime shows on a regular, frequent basis in the same way, UFC's out there on ground. Maybe not in the first year. We won't be as populous in terms of our event schedule, but we have some big plans for the U.S.
Can't wait. And I can't wait for people in the United States and all of North America to actually attend the show in person so they can see all the pageantry, all the production, the beautiful way you guys showcase the fighters. It's incredible. And I want to applaud you guys for that. It really does feel like every card is a Super Bowl because of the way you guys have built that over the years. So kudos to you all.
Yeah, thanks so much. We've had so many different martial arts legends come see our show, whether it's, Renzo Gracie or Eddie Bravo or, any of these icons. And they all say the same thing. This is bigger and better than Pride ever was. I I don't know. In my heart, I always feel like Pride has always been the benchmark in terms of production value, in terms of excitement, and just the sheer fireworks it would have for every mega event. And I think a lot of hardcore MMA fans feel the same way. And so, what's kind of funny, or I don't know, maybe fortuitous or coincidental, Pride ended after 10 years, and we are crossing our 10th year anniversary. Technically, actually, this Friday, tomorrow. 10 years ago was our first event, and we're just getting started. So we've now, I guess, the torch has been passed. Obviously, Pride never reached the viewership and engagement numbers we have had at a global level, but still, in my mind, Pride, it's just iconic. It's I think every hardcore MMA fan would say, if you ask them today, what's your favorite promotion of all time? I'd say most MMA fans will still say Pride.
Man, we had some long nights where we would stay up to watch those Pride events. It was beautiful. And I always get chills when I listen to their opening theme song.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And I don't think, again, while I think, UFC and ONE have made an incredible stride, and obviously, Head and Shoulders much, much bigger than Pride ever was, but still there's something nostalgic about Pride and something magical that you just can't take away. So I think for me, I'll always be a fan.
Big month for you guys, starting tomorrow with Empower Revolution on September 24th. It's going to be great. Ghost, did you want to say one last thing?
Well, yeah, 10-year anniversary, you don't strike me as an individual that's going to get a cupcake and blow a candle. I feel like you're going to blow the roof off of something. What's going to happen the 10-year anniversary show?
Well, the show is called 1X, as in Roman numeral 10.
Right.
1X, and it's gonna blow the roof off the entire world come December. I think we're set to announce it next week. A few of the fights and the actual date, but it's gonna be the biggest event that ONE has ever thrown. And for our 100th event, it was called 1 Century a couple years ago in Tokyo. We had 22 fights. I think it was 6 world title fights on that card. And I can just tell you that our 1X card is gonna be bigger, badder, and it's going to be the biggest thing that ONE has ever done, and it's going to be the hardest thing we've ever done. But it's going to be, I think fans are going to be blown away.
Chatri, I did have one more question I wanted to slip by here. I think it's important. This is not political at all. I think this is a global question that I think is very important. In the NFL, for example, there's teams that are making roster cuts, and some of them have to do with players that have been vaccinated. You see concert promoters that are saying no vaccination or no proof of test can't get in. I consider this now a global issue, not a political issue at all. Does ONE Championship have a stance possibly now or going forward on what you're going to do with your athletes when it comes to vaccinations? And it seems like that's just the way where we can get the world going again, the business world and the world in general.
Yeah. Well, the Singapore government has made it mandatory for anyone coming into the country to be vaccinated. So given the fact that, the last 12 months, we've only held events here in Singapore, just because the rest of Asia, the borders are still closed. Every country around the world is dealing with COVID differently. Singapore is now at an 80% plus vaccination rate as a country. But then you have neighboring Thailand that's around 5%, and Indonesia even less than that. So COVID still, has, I think, hit all-time highs in Japan last week, hit all-time high in Malaysia, hit all-time highs in Thailand. China seems to have it under control, but it's one of these things that the entire world, obviously the worst economic crisis in 100 years, and the way out, it does seem for right now, is to get vaccinated. At least it lessens the symptoms, and it seems like the fatality rates have dropped because of that. Of course, people still don't know, how long do these vaccines last for, et cetera. But to answer your question, we have encouraged our athletes to get vaccinated. I believe around 70% of our athletes are vaccinated right now. And obviously, if they want to compete in Singapore, the only way we can, it's not us, it's the Singapore government, right? And we're truly grateful to the Singapore government, much in the same way that, UFC has a bubble in Abu Dhabi. we've had this bubble in Singapore. And I'm actually in the bubble right now. I'm in my hotel room right now. And I have to enter the bubble for all of our events, and I get quarantined. So after the event, I'm here, and they have multiple tests and all that stuff. And so literally the athletes fly in to the airport, they get picked up, they're already in a bubble in the airport, a bubble lane, brought to the hotel in a bubble, stadium in a bubble, and it's just COVID protocols everywhere. And it's super draconian. It's not like the States where, I saw a huge concert with 100,000 people. That's definitely not happening out here in Asia, anywhere in Asia, you saw the Olympics. It was a couple weeks ago, and that's empty stadium. So yeah, I do believe in vaccines, and it's not a political issue. Vaccines have been around forever. mRNA technology has been around for 30 years. And the proof is in the pudding, the numbers, right? It's not a political issue for me. For me, it's just about being practical, right?
Agreed. Sir, thank you so much for the time today. Your late night evening and our early morning, really, really appreciate you doing this. Less than 24 hours, you got a big show. I'm sure you got to get ready for it. We're going to get amped up for it. We're going to get up early and check it out. So thank you again, Chatri Sityodtong, and hopefully we can talk to you soon again.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.